it's ineffective, it's useless, doesn't really work. So would your party, or libertarians, would your platform, would we federally decriminalize all drugs, right? And what type, like, which drugs would be like legal? You know how in Canada they made weed federally legal?
Yeah.
Would we also do that?
The federal government would completely deschedule all substances. Right. Yeah. Because, and that's not to say you should. Just a little bit of background on me. I've been sober for 14 years now. I'm a recovering drug addict. I am not encouraging anyone here to do drugs. I don't think they're a good idea. I don't think drinking is a good idea. I have no problem with people drinking. You can drink whatever you want. It's none of my business. When you make something illegal, you do not stop people from using it. We saw with prohibition of alcohol what happened. They said all these terrible things are happening because of drunkenness. They were right. They said there's more, someone who is drunk is much more likely to abuse their spouse or to be homeless or to be jobless or to have secondary health problems. They were right. Everything they said was right. They also said it was morally wrong and whatever. That's their own personal opinion. But all the stuff they said, all the social ills that came from people being addicted to alcohol, they were right. Maybe they skewed the stats a little bit, but they were right. If you have a alcohol problem, you're more likely to have other social and economic and financial issues as well. When they made it illegal, addictions went up because people couldn't get help anymore because it was illegal for them to even tell anyone that they drank. Now the market for alcohol was now exclusively owned by criminal cartels who went from being two-bit thugs who ran protection rackets and the numbers in places that didn't allow gambling to becoming the billionaires of their time. They became the most powerful and wealthy people in the country. They became so powerful and so wealthy that they bought politicians, and now they owned entire cities. So what happened? Corruption got worse, crime got worse because they were now fighting each other over territory, and that's when the first gun control happened for all of us. Was the NFA, which the NRA wrote, by the way. NRA, National Rifle Association, wrote the National Firearms Act. They didn't just support it; they wrote it. But so they passed those laws, but it was because the problem wasn't machine guns. The problem was that there were criminal cartel gangs that had been empowered and were fighting each other in the streets. That doesn't sound familiar to anything that's happening now. But anyway, and they owned politicians. They bought and paid for all politicians. New England, this whole area was owned by the Kennedy dynasty. Why do we have a Kennedy dynasty? Because Joe Kennedy made his fortune as a rum runner. He brought in alcohol from Canada and from Ireland. He made a fortune off of it. That's why the Kennedy dynasty exists. Al Capone owned all of Chicago. They became powerful. So what happened? Addictions went up, corruption went up, crime went up, murder went up, and there was a growing rift of distrust between people and the police and the government. Because now the government were a bunch of corrupt officials who were giving them a hard time for drinking and having fun while allowing the rum runners to run roughshod. That's exactly what has happened now with prohibition of everything else. I'm not saying it's a good idea to do crack. It's not a good idea to do crack or meth or heroin or any of that stuff. I am saying is that when someone is addicted to something, the best way to help them is to help them, not put them in a cage. Treat what they have as a health issue and allow them to get help. I'm not saying create a program, even though that would be cheaper than throwing them in a cage. I'm saying just let them get help. I'm saying let churches help and let nonprofits help addicts. They can't. They will go to jail. If a church, in most states, if a church went to help an addict who was getting help to be able to help them, they would get in trouble and didn't turn around and report them to the authorities. They'd get in trouble they would be an accomplice to a crime. So they could get in trouble. They could actually go to jail. They could get fined. This is what happens when you put something in the black market, put it in the shadows. People can't get help. It leads to abuse.